again, I think it's just a good reminder that we are a lot more capable than we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of value in doing things that are ridiculously hard every once in a while and coming out on the other side going, hey, I survived that. I didn't, I say this sort of tongue in cheek, but I didn't die.
Right.
I was really, really uncomfortable, and I learned something about myself, and I learned something about other people. So.
Yeah. All right, so we're here with Dan. Dan is going to talk about his Ironman. What was the event called?
It was Ironman Coeur d'Alene.
Ironman Coeur d'Alene. So this is not Dan's first Ironman, but we're going to talk about what it was like, his experience. He's got some fun stories, and how he approached it. So I guess first off, it was Ironman Coeur d'Alene.
Yep.
Can you tell what an Ironman is exactly?
Sure. So Ironman is it's a specific distance of a triathlon, and it's a 2.4 mile swim. It's a 112 mile bike ride, and then you finish with a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles.
Okay. And all Ironmans could differ. Your terrain can be different.
Yeah, I mean so Ironman itself is a brand.
Okay.
So Ironman, the name Ironman is specific to an event run by an organization called the World Triathlon Corporation.
Okay.
But in the world of triathlon, the word Ironman is synonymous with that distance.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the terrain changes. Like there's courses in Arizona, which is notoriously flat.
Okay.
There are
And hotter?
depends on Arizona is in later in the year. So I mean they plan for that. Like they don't try to run an event when it's going to be super hot, but weird things happen.
Yeah.
The World Championship, which everyone sort of recognizes as Ironman, which is in Kona, Hawaii. It's an ocean swim. It's always hot. It's always really, really windy, and it's a fairly hilly course. So yeah, the terrain changes depending on the location, obviously.
Okay. Are you training for that one?
Well, you can't just train for that one.
No.
You have to qualify for it.
Okay.
So in order to race in Kona, you have to qualify. This Coeur d'Alene probably was my best opportunity to qualify ever, because typically they only allow the top 3 in an age group to qualify for Kona. And I think this year it's different because they've had to cancel so many races, so they're having a hard time getting enough people to qualify for Kona, or they're having a hard time doing enough races to get enough people to Kona to fill it up. So this year they actually had 200 slots at Ironman Coeur d'Alene for Kona. So my age group, instead of only the top 3 going, the top 28 ended up getting a qualifying spot for Kona.
I mean, that's great for them.
It's huge, yeah. I mean, it was
awesome.
Honestly, I went in thinking there's actually an opportunity. There's actually potential that this could happen, because when I did Ironman Louisville in 2017, I finished 20th in my age group. So there was certainly the potential.
What were you for this?
51st.
51st.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. The age group actually that I'm in, 50 to 54, is actually a really competitive age group.
Okay. So you said that some of them have, like Kona has an ocean swim.
Yep.
So the one you just did had
It was a lake swim.
Lake swim. Have you done an ocean swim before?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Like when we lived in California, and certainly when we lived in Guam.
How do those compare?
I love it.
You like the ocean?
I love the
better?
ocean.
Okay.
I love the ocean. I love being able to see. Like I've done triathlons in water that was so dark you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I did. Louisville was in the Ohio River, which was basically like drinking diesel fuel for 2.5 miles.
That doesn't sound fun.
So I love swimming in the ocean. I love seeing the wildlife. I love it. I love it.
How was the water in Idaho?
It was nice. It started off pretty shallow, and then once we got out about 600 meters or so, it started getting deeper. And once the water started getting deeper, it started getting a little rougher.
Okay.
It wasn't rough, but it was rougher.
Boise Lake?
It's Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene Lake?
Yeah.
Oh, not Boise.
Yeah.
Sorry, Coeur d'Alene. Okay.
We did have a little bit of sun. Like when you turn around the first buoy, you were kind of staring right into the sun, so it was hard to see the next buoy. But yeah, the swim was actually great. The swim is my weakest event. I typically have some sort of panic about 5 minutes into the swim, and this one was smooth the whole way. It was my slowest swim, but I actually really, for the first time ever, I really enjoyed the swim.
Right.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who said they would do a triathlon if there wasn't a swim.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be a triathlon, but you know.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If there was no swim,
there is a sport called
there's
a sport called duathlon, which is run, bike, run.
Yeah.
There you go.
They can do that then.
Yeah.
That's their fear is the swim. So, okay. So, what are the biggest comparisons between this one that you just did and the other ones you've done?
I mean, so all the courses that I've done, I did one up in Canada, in Penticton, Canada. Interesting thing was that was one of the longest running Ironman races in North America.
Oh, wow.
But the year that I did it, it was run by a different organization. So technically it wasn't an Ironman. It was run by an organization called Challenge. Okay. Anyway, Challenge, Penticton, same thing as Ironman, same course. And then in 2017, we did Ironman Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky. And the comparison is that, so the bike course was fairly comparable, meaning that Penticton had a lot of climbing, had a couple of really long climbs, like a 5 mile and a 6 mile climb. Louisville didn't have anything really, really long, but it was just constant rolling terrain. So, and then Coeur d'Alene had a couple of really long climbs, like a 2 mile and then a mile and a half long climb, and then a couple of others. So a fair amount of elevation gain on all three courses.
Okay.
And then the runs were fairly flat.
For all of them?
Yeah.
Did you train differently this time than the other times?
I did. I trained more volume, meaning I did more long distance cycling than I have in the past. I think when I did Canada, my longest bike ride, I did one 80-mile bike ride. Mm-hmm. Probably did about the same for Louisville. And then this year I did 2 rides that were over 90. I did a ride that was over 80, and I did 1 or 2 rides that were over 70. So I definitely did more volume on the bike. I didn't get quite as long on the run as I had hoped to. Okay. I did do one run that was like 17 and a half miles.
Okay. You trained at the Y for swimming too, right?
Yeah, it's the only option, really.
Yeah, Liberty Bay?
I did. Well, I did one swim in with Liberty. I only did 2 open water swims. Okay. So usually I would do not a lot more, but a few more open water swims. But honestly, the thing in triathlon, and especially for someone like me, but the thing in triathlon, the swim is the shortest part of the whole day, right? My swim wasn't very good, and it was an hour and 20 minutes. My best swim ever was in the river when I had the current pushing me, and I swam an hour and 6 minutes. Okay. So between my best and my worst is 15 minutes, right? If you compare like the marathon, at the end of the day, if you have a really bad marathon, you could lose an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours if you're just walking, right? And so, not to discredit the swim, but if you're trying to make the biggest bang for your buck in training, it's not on the swim.
Okay. It's on the run and the bike.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you bike a lot already anyway, right? You did the STP.
Yeah, I mean, I've done long distance cycling. I don't bike a lot.
Okay.
When something's coming up, I bike more.
Okay.
I love cycling. I just don't prioritize it unless I have an event.
Okay. So the weather there.
Yeah, the weather.
We had the hottest, I think a record breaking, they were saying here, for heat. You guys had it pretty hot as well, right?
It was hot. 100? Yeah, it was hot. It was over 100 for the race. It depends on who you ask. It was 101, 105, whatever. It was over 100 degrees for the race. Yeah. Okay. Which was hard.
Made it hard.
Yeah, that made it really, really hard.
All right. You had some funny stories, you said. Things that stood out.
Well, I mean, it was just, it was just, like I said, it's a long day.
You said how long?
Things happen. 12 and a half hours. 12:33.
Okay.
Which was not my goal. My goal was 11 hours.
Okay.
So, at any rate, it's a long day. Interesting things happened. As soon as I got out on the bike, so my bike is set up that I have these bars called aero bars, which you can just kind of rest your elbows and just kind of relax into a more aerodynamic position.
Right.
And it's a little bit more of a relaxed position. And so between my aero bars, I have this water bottle that has a hose on it so that you can drink without having to make much effort. And my aero bottle was leaking.
Oh no!
And so not only was I losing my hydration, but it was dripping all over me, and so
it didn't just go down; it went.
No, I mean because of the wind from the bike. So I finished off that bottle, and when I got to one of the aid stations, instead of my plan was to refill it with other stuff that I had. I had to pitch it. I just threw it because I didn't want to pour stuff in there and just have it drip all over.
Right.
So that had to change my plan a little bit. Also, I had I was using this stuff called base salt, which is basically, it's salt. So it's electrolytes. And so what I would do is I had this little tube of it. I would have it in my back pocket, and every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, every 5 miles, I would reach back, grab a hold of that tube, and then put a little bit of salt in my mouth just to get some electrolytes. And I'm cruising along in like the first 5-6 miles of the race, and I hear something hit the ground. And I look back, and my base salt had fallen out of my pocket and hit the deck. And I wasn't going to go back for it. It busted open. But I had a second one. I had a reserve on my right side.
So you lucked out there.
So I did, but
how fast are you?
For those of you that know that my right shoulder doesn't work that well, so I had to like reach back and grab it and adjust it and put it in my left. Side. So like I started off on the bike and like two things happened right away. I was like, my aero bottle's garbage, and I just lost half my base salts.
Okay, so you started with the swim. Swim went good.
Swimming went okay. I mean, I enjoyed the swim, but it didn't go fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nope, no animals ate you. You did great.
Yeah.
So you get to the bike. You've got two things happening.
Yeah.
And then.
So the rest of the first lap of the bike. So the bike is 2 loops. And the first lap of the bike went pretty good. The first part of the bike course is in town in Coeur d'Alene.
How many loops did you say?
2 loops.
2 loops.
So that part. So it's sort of like 2 bow ties. You go out in town and you come back in, and that was 14 miles. And then you go out 21 miles out of town on the highway, and you come back for a total of 56 miles, and you do that twice. Okay. And the first loop, the 14-mile loop in town, is fairly flat and fairly fast. And then when you start heading out of town is when you hit all the serious climbing, and that's where things start to slow down and grind down a bit. And so the first loop was actually really good. I finished the first loop in 2 hours and 50 minutes, which put me on pace for like a 5-hour and 40-minute total ride, which would have been fine. Like I would have been really happy with that. Like anywhere 5.5 to 5:45, I would have been really, really happy with. I was trying to get it under 6 hours. When we went back out on the second loop, that you go out of town and almost immediately you start the first 2 mile, the longest climb of the day, which is 2 miles. And it was at that point that I really started to feel the heat. Like the rest of the time on the bike, you get the breeze and everything, and it was still early enough in the morning that it wasn't too bad. But that second time going up that hill, that 2 mile climb, you're like, oh my God, it is hot. And you can just feel, because you're not going very fast. Yeah. You're exerting a fair amount of effort, and that sun just started beating down on me. Yeah, there's no shade at all. One skill that I acquired while I was out there, I learned how to pee on the bike.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Right on your bike.
Right on the bike. Still not even pulling over.
So I've heard talks
you just
about
keep
this.
going.
Some people are like, I can't do it. Some people are like,
yeah, I've never been able to do it. Like I've tried it in training, and I'm just like, I just can't relax to the point that it could happen.
There's somebody behind you riding their bike, and you pee, whoosh, goes on.
Yeah, but there's a rule in triathlon that you can't be right behind anyone.
Oh, okay.
So you have to maintain a 6 bike length.
Okay.
Because you can't draft.
Okay.
Otherwise, you could just sit on someone's wheel.
Behind you got.
Well, I mean, but it's part of the sport.
Oh, okay.
It's part of the sport. But yeah, so I figured that out, and so I was able to pee on the bike like 5 or 6 times, and never had to get off the bike for that.
So how do you figure that out? You just get over the nerves and do it, or?
It wasn't a nerves thing. It was learning how to shift my body weight so that there wasn't as much pressure there, and I just basically I would wait until I was on a descent coming down a hill where I didn't have to exert any effort in the pedals, and I could just sort of stand on the pedals and lift my body weight off and just go, and then people would start passing me because I wasn't going very fast, right? My focus was on something else, but you save a bunch of time by not having to pull over.
Stop over.
Yeah.
How many? Do you think that a lot of people do that then? Or just the competitive?
A fair number of people do it. Not everyone does. I mean, there are other people that are like, yeah, I can't. Like some people just won't. Like they're like, that's gross. And it is kind of gross, but and others that just they can't get their body to do it, right? So same thing like in the swim, like the thing is you put your wetsuit on, you go get in the water and you get wet, and the first thing you do is you pee in your wetsuit, right? And
the water washes it.
Yeah, so that's a funny story. So I borrowed my friend's wetsuit because I have a full length wetsuit that has full sleeves and everything, and my friend has a wetsuit that's sleeveless.
Okay.
And the water there was going to be warm enough that it made sense to wear a sleeveless wetsuit. It's a faster wetsuit to get off. It's a little less restrictive around the shoulders and that kind of thing. And so we do the swim. The swim was 2 loops, and as I was exiting the second loop, I was like, oh, I have to pee. And they had a whole line of porta potties. Like you come out of the water and you're running to where your bike is, and they have a whole line of porta potties. And as I was running, I got out of the water. I told my friend, I was like, so that long transition from the edge of the water all the way to my bike, I just want you to know that I peed in your wetsuit
As you were running?
Oh yeah, the whole way.
Running.
Well, I mean, I wasn't really sprinting. I was kind of like half jogging, half walking, and mostly peeing.
I feel like that's got to be a skill too. I mean, I guess if you have to go bad enough.
Peeing while swimming is hard.
Okay.
But just while you're in a wetsuit, it's not that bad. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you go to the pool. People pee often in those
yeah,
pools.
But not while they're swimming,
not while
typically,
they're swimming.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
everybody's
anyway,
gonna try that at home now.
Yeah. So I learned how to pee on the bike. That was a big deal.
Yeah. Do you wear the suit while you're biking too? Do you wear it the entire time?
What's that?
The wetsuit.
Oh,
or
God,
do you strip it off?
Oh God,
okay.
no. Yeah, it's too hot.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I figured.
No. So I have a triathlon suit that I wear.
Okay.
If you saw in the pictures that kind of lime green thing, I have that on under the wetsuit.
Okay.
Right, and so you just peel off the wetsuit and off you go. Some people actually change. They'll typically at an Ironman they have a changing tent. So you come out of the water, you lay down on the ground, and there's people who yank your wetsuit off of you. They hand you your bag that has all your gear in it. So someone's there with your bag, and they hand you your bag. You go running into a changing tent, and you're in there, and it's private. And so people will strip down buck naked and put on whatever they want, sunscreen, do all that kind of stuff. And then you run out, and you run out to your bike, and then you go off and go. This year, because of COVID, they didn't have changing tents. They didn't have anyone to strip off your wetsuit because they didn't want anyone touching people, right? And so this time it was old school triathlon where there's no changing tent and all of your gear is just sitting there right at your bike. So it makes it a little bit harder for those people who want to change because there's a no nudity rule, right?
Is there?
So you have, because you're in a public park and there's people everywhere, right? So people were using towels and all kinds of things to change. But yeah, so some people will change clothes completely. I just wear what I'm going to race in.
Strip it off.
Yeah.
Pee as you ride. Go.
Exactly.
Take all the time off.
Exactly.
Okay, so when it's hot enough, I'm assuming that you pee, because I'm imagining that would be uncomfortable to now run a marathon wet. I guess you dry because
you dry
it's
off
hot.
pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah, you dry off pretty quick. And there, because it was super hot and super dry, it's not humid, right? So, yeah.
Okay. So, back to the bike. So you're on the bike still, you've peed.
Yeah, things are going well, although I can definitely feel that I'm slowing down. I'm on the second loop of the bike, feeling that I'm starting to slow down. I'm starting to feel like, I haven't cramped or anything, but I can feel like my hamstring on my left side, I'm aware of it, where on the right side, I'm not aware of my hamstring. On the left side, I know something, like if I continue to try to push the pace that I'm going, bad things are probably going to happen. But I continue riding and just trying to be as smart as I can, and feeling pretty good. Like, I know I'm not going to finish quite as fast as I wanted to, but I'm going to finish okay. And then at mile 90, I got a flat tire. So I'm just cruising along, everything's great, and all of a sudden, psst, my tire goes flat.
Do they fix that, or you have stuff? No.
Well, I have stuff. You carry stuff. But there are vehicles and mopeds running around that are technical support. Okay. So you could sit and wait, but you have no idea where that person's going to be. They could be 20 miles behind you. Right. They could be, sometimes you get lucky and they could be right there, right? Yeah, exactly. They could be helping us. They have multiple. Anyway, I carry all my gear that I need to change my tire on the bike. So I get off the bike, and at first I'm like sort of frantic, and then I thought, wait a second, just relax. I told myself, this is an opportunity. Use this for good. Relax. Your legs are already starting to get a little bit beat up, so take a moment to just let your legs recover, drink, eat, change your tire properly, right? And so I went through the entire process of changing my tire, meticulously going over, making sure there's not something stuck in the tire that's causing the flat. I don't know what caused the flat. At any rate, got everything all set up, and I use a CO2 cartridge to quickly inflate the tire.
Okay.
And so when I inflated the tire, everything went well, but when I went to remove the CO2 cartridge off of the valve, it took out what's called the core of the valve, and so basically pulled that off, and then just all the air shot out of my tire again.
No.
Like, oh shit. So I had another CO2,
Okay.
so I do it again, and it gets stuck, and I'm like, oh god, like don't do this again. So, long story short, I was able to get it off, maintain all the air in my tire, but you don't really know how much pressure you have. You have enough pressure that you can ride your bike again, but it's not optimal pressure. And so for the next 22 miles, I was riding a bit more cautiously because I didn't want to hit anything. I didn't want to
Because it could make another
bumps.
flat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I did, with about 5 miles left, I hit one little set of rumble strips, which kind of freaked me out because I was like, because that could cause a flat. It could pinch your tire and cause a flat. So, at any rate, I finished the bike ride.
Would you have had backup again, or would that was
No,
that
that was it. I was out of
Then you'd be
stuff.
waiting for that guy to
Yeah,
come
you know, and while I was sitting there with my flat tire, I can't even count the number of people, 10 people that were also racing, that as they were riding by, like, hey, you got everything? Are you okay? Do you need help?
Oh, nice.
I mean, and I saw that. I saw another guy who had a flat tire, and there was another competitor there parked his bike and was helping him change his tire. So, especially at that point of the race, you know, you kind of know, like, I'm not winning anything. I'm not in contention for anything. And so it's not that big of a deal if I stop for a few minutes to help someone else.
Okay.
And so people are typically pretty good about that.
Right.
Now, at the front end of the pack, it's every man, every woman for themselves.
Right,
Like,
'cause they're
sorry,
competing.
sucker,
Yeah.
you know, and off
That's
you
right.
go, right?
They're happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's out. Less one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, so finished the bike ride. During the bike, I think this is my favorite story of the whole thing, is that from the moment I got on the bike, my lips were dry, like just dry. And I knew it wasn't because oftentimes my lips will get dry when I'm dehydrated, but I just started, so I knew I wasn't dehydrated. And I'm drinking like crazy, but literally for 6.5 hours almost, my lips were just dry, and I was just like,
I think it's the heat.
I'm just licking my lips just constantly, like, I couldn't get my lips to.
Worse.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, I know. So I'm making it worse. So then I wiped one, and I'm like, oh my god, my lips are so salty now. It's like licking a salt lick or something.
Yeah.
And so there was actually a moment toward the end of the bike where you have all kinds of weird thoughts out there, right? And there's actually a moment during the bike where I thought to myself, I don't think I want to keep going. I think I want to quit because my lips are really uncomfortable. Like, I'm like, I was going to quit because of my chapped lips, right? I'm like, this is stupid.
So I'm assuming you didn't have chapstick in the...
No, I did not have chapstick. But I remembered that when we checked in your little bag that had all of your gear in it, like your race number and all that stuff, there was a little tube of chapstick.
Gave you chapstick.
And so when I went back into the run transition, I thought, well, maybe at the aid stations on the run, because they usually have like sunscreen, in addition to food and drinks, sometimes they have sunscreen, they have Vaseline if you need to lube up or anything. I thought, well, just maybe they'll have some chapstick. And so I finished the bike, do everything I needed to get ready for the run. I come out of the transition area to start my run, and there's an aid station right there immediately, handing out water and stuff. So I'm drinking water, and I asked them, and I was like, do you guys have any chapstick? And she's like, oh, no, I'm sorry, we don't have any chapstick. I was like, oh, crap. I'm just thinking about, like, I've got another... If I have a good day, I have at least 4 hours of my lips just being this... Oh, this is dreadful, like, the thought of it. I was like, this sucks. And so...
Have you never experienced this before then?
No, I've never had this happen before. And I was like, oh, I sure I could get a hold of Amy and tell her to, like, put a bunch of chapstick on her face, and I'll run by and give her a kiss and get... Because, like, your family and friends can't give you something.
Oh,
they cannot hand you things. Yeah, you could do that. But I have no way to communicate. Man. I don't have a phone on me or anything, right? So at any rate, I leave that transition area. I leave that aid station really disappointed. And I take off on my little shuffle run, and I get about 30 yards up the sidewalk, and I look down, and there's a chapstick laying on the ground.
No, Dan.
And I was like, yes! I was so happy. And I reached down, and I grabbed the chapstick, and there's people everywhere cheering people on, and they're looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? I grabbed the chapstick, and I was like, this is the best thing ever! And I yanked the cap off, and it's obvious that someone has used this chapstick and just inadvertently dropped it, and I was just like, I just rubbed it all over my face, took off running. I didn't care, and literally, like, I remember I got like a mile down the road, and I was like, oh my God, my lips feel so amazing right now. It was literally the best thing that happened during the entire race. I didn't care. It was later that I thought about
some poor fool out there is driving around without chapstick.
Well, that's
the same thing.
That's someone else picked up my base salts too, right?
Do you think that's what it was? Do you think it was the salt and the heat combined? Like, have you used that salt before in the past?
Nah, yeah, I've used that salt in training. I just think it was the heat. I think it was just so hot. It was just pulling, plus the sun.
And then you're licking your lips.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was kind of funny.
If you get a bag with a chapstick in it, take that chapstick with you.
Yeah, so that chapstick was sort of the running joke of the next few days because I hung on to it for the next few days and used it, and so it was good. Nice. The chapstick was awesome. That was a lifesaver.
Yeah, I was keeping up with Amy, and she kept seeing you. Should we take pictures and be like, there he is here? So where was she in this loop?
She was in the downtown area. So that was the cool thing about this course is that you go out on the bike, you go out 7 miles, you come back. So they saw us when we left. They saw us when we came back by, and then we went out and did 21 miles, and then 21 miles back in, and she saw me again. And again and again. She was right there. And then she was right there when I went out on the run. And the run was 3 laps. So you do 3 laps on the run. Okay. So you can see people multiple times. It was good for spectators.
Okay. Yeah. So other than the flat tire and stopping there, you didn't really on the aid station looking for chapstick. You didn't really stop
on the bike. No. So there's mile like 65 or so, you could fill a bag with stuff that you wanted to have. And so at mile 65, you can stop, and then they'll hand you your bag, and then so that's when you can start to restock. Because you can't, you could carry everything, but it's just a crazy amount. Yeah, it's your own bag. Let's call it a special needs bag. You could carry all the stuff that you need, but it's a lot of shit to carry. Right. And so now I can get rid of garbage and then put new stuff on my bike. But I didn't even get off my bike. Like someone stood there and held my bike for me while I. Wow. Yeah, so I stayed on the bike. They have
volunteers for this then.
Oh, they have a lot of volunteers. The volunteers were fantastic. They were so good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Really good. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So come out of the run, and I immediately, as I started the run, I knew my legs didn't feel good.
Okay, we're on to the run. All right.
Yeah, and I, in the first mile, I cramped like 3 times. Once where I had to like literally stop for 3 or 4 minutes and stretch and do all that, and I literally was thinking, I'm not even a mile into this, and I'm barely making the mile. I think my first mile was like 14 minutes or something like that.
Did you experience that in the past? The cramping?
Yeah, Louisville, I cramped a fair amount on the run. I have a long history of cramping in long events like that, and also in hot events. So I'm a mile into this, and I thought, this is pointless. Like, I'm not. It's gonna take me 7 hours to do this freaking marathon, and I thought many, many times about, no, I'll just walk back. Like, this is stupid. And I don't know what it was. I mean,
is it the same loop now or different?
Yeah, it's a similar loop to the bike course. It's a little bit different, but it's in town. You go out along the lake. I literally wanted to quit. I can't even count the number of times I wanted to quit in the first 3 miles of the run. And I don't really know what kept me going. Like, there was this hope that something would change, and that happens a lot. You hear people say like, something happened and I started feeling better, and I've experienced that before. A lot of it was, the week leading up to the race, the number of people that came up to me in the gym or messaged me and just said, hey, thinking about you, good luck, like, been watching all of your training and it's really inspirational, and everyone was really, really excited about that. And all the messages I got like right before the race, that inspired me, and I knew I couldn't just quit. Like, in the moment, I told myself, you're really uncomfortable, but you're not hurt. You're not broken. You're not, you're okay with being uncomfortable. And so I just tried to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and then out there on the course, you'd see other people that were clearly in a bad way. Like, I saw people puking on the side of the road. I saw people, I saw one guy that was just laying in the fetal position on the side of the road, in the grass. A friend of mine who was also racing, like, I bumped into him at mile 4, and he's like, I'm out. The medics told him he's done. Like, he had to get an IV during the race, and they're like, you're done.
The heat would be pretty.
Oh, the heat was terrible. Horrible. And so, I just kept telling myself, like, it's not that bad. Like, yeah, it's really uncomfortable. It's not fun. There's a fair amount of pain involved. You're going to be here a lot longer than you wanted to be, but you can still finish the damn thing. And there were moments where I was fine. Like, I was running at an 8.5 minute pace, which isn't fast, but it was okay. And then third of a mile later, I'm like, oh God, there go my legs again. So it ended up being a lot of running / jogging. I walked through every aid station, took advantage of everything they had there. They had ice towels and stuff like that. And so, the run ended up taking me 4 hours and 45 minutes.
Okay.
So,
which is still pretty good. Well, you think of people who do marathons.
Yeah.
And that's all they do, and some of them take that long.
Some of them do. Yeah. The 2 Ironmans that I've done, Ironman distance races that I've done before, my marathons have not been spectacular, and they were 4 hours. And so I knew if I could just go in and have a decent run where I didn't cramp under ideal conditions, I knew I could be somewhere between 3.5 to 3:45. Right. So it was an hour longer than I wanted it to be.
Was the heat like this on the other?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Okay. This was
the worst.
Uncharted territory for me. So
yeah.
But the finish was great. It was great to be able to see my family out there at the finish line.
Yeah, they were out there watching you and stuff. And you had friends out there too, right?
It's the first time that my daughters have ever seen me race.
Okay.
So that was cool.
I saw a photo
think
of
they.
I think it was Sophie, right?
Piper.
No, Piper waving at you.
They didn't appreciate the entire day, but they appreciated the finish. So.
That's cool. That's awesome. And then you got to stay. So your time was, I don't know. I think it's pretty good. Maybe it's just because to me, I would never do this. It doesn't sound enjoyable. But for all those, what would you say to anybody who is training for it? Whether it's their first time, what would you have done differently? Or could you have done differently?
I don't know what I would have done. I mean, of course, I would have run more, but I don't think that would have changed the outcome much.
Okay.
Honestly,
you can't replicate the heat unless the heat's there.
Yeah, you can't. And it was not hot here at all. Like the hottest training day I had here was like 75 degrees.
I know, and then all of a sudden.
Yeah. So, I don't think there was a lot I could have done differently. I guess, obviously, I could have gone a little bit slower in the first part of the bike, but I never felt like I was stressing myself in the first part of the bike. And that's typical. Like, that's in every race where I've sort of blown up at some point. That's not true. There are races where I've blown up and I was like, well, yeah, of course. Look what you were doing the first part of the...
Okay.
It's usually the first part of the bike because I know I'm not going to swim well.
Right.
But I know I can make up time on the bike, and that's where I sort of get myself into trouble.
Okay.
And in this particular race, I knew that first 14 miles in town was flat and fast and was an area where you could get yourself into trouble. And that's typically what I would do. It'd be like, this is flat and fast. I'm going to take advantage of it. And at this race, I kept telling myself, I mean, I rode fairly fast, but I wasn't trying to ride fast.
Right.
So I'd like to say I do more hill training, but we have a lot of hills here. We just don't have a lot of really long hills.
What about the one right over by, is it Central Market?
That's steep. It's not even that long. It's just steep.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a long, grinding hill, just like Newberry Hill or like we're out Anderson. Too steep. Yeah. That's not what we're looking for. Like that in a race would be
it's not what I'm looking for.
Devastating. So I'm looking for a long grinding hill that takes like 2 to 3 miles to get up. If I could find something like that to train on, but I don't think I would have done that much differently, honestly.
Okay. What did you prepare for foods? I mean, like looking at different races, right? Mike talked about how he brought a burrito with him.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Okay. So my food on the race was Cliff Blocks, which are like gummies, and then goo, like gels.
The gels. Okay.
And then I had some the waffles, like the Stroop waffles. That was my food. In my transition or in my special needs bag, I did have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a banana, which I did not take.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, when I look at it, I did not eat everything that I intended to eat on the bike, and so that potentially set me up for the cramping on the run. So if I did something different, it would be from a nutrition aspect. I'm going to try to play around more with liquid nutrition as opposed to solid nutrition.
Especially
and try to do a mix of both.
Okay. So I guess we talked about peeing on the bike.
Yeah.
What happens if you have to go number 2?
Oh, there's porta potties.
Do people do it a lot? I mean, or is it like your nerves are going so you don't need to?
Oh, I definitely have.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely have. Yeah. Okay. I didn't on this course, but I definitely have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So you didn't change your diet too much. for the run specifically? Like, you know, they say when you're training for something, you shouldn't eat something you're not used to eating.
No, when I got to the run, my entire nutrition plan just went out the window. Like, I abandoned everything that I thought of, because everything that I was planning to do wasn't working.
Right.
And so they the kind of the infamous thing on the course is soda. So they had Pepsi, and they also had Red Bull, which I didn't do the Red Bull. Just that doesn't sound good to me. But they had Pepsi, and I took Pepsi at almost every aid station. Okay. Yeah, and it literally is like at mile 3. That's when I hit my first Pepsi, and I was like, whoa! I felt amazing after that. A little later in the run, like around mile 7 or so, I had a little chunk of banana, and I felt awesome after that. I was like, oh my god, that was amazing. So the next aid station, I ate another banana, a small chunk of banana, and then I got a side stitch that lasted 13 miles. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm done with the damn bananas. Like, no more bananas.
Which is probably not even the banana.
It probably wasn't, right? But at that point, you're looking to blame something, whatever it is, right? And so,
I get it.
So yeah, I would go back and forth between, I'd have to walk because my side stitch, and then my side stitch would feel better, and then my hamstring would feel like crap, and then my hamstring would feel better, and it was a mess.
Anything to get through it. I've never heard soda at this. I mean, I don't often do them. I always think like Powerade, Gatorades, those.
Well, they had Gatorade as well. They had Gatorade Endurance, but so what you get from like a Pepsi or a Coke is a bunch of sugar, and caffeine.
Right. Okay.
And it's a known thing. Like, you get an immediate boost. Yeah. But the issue is, once you start, you can't stop.
Okay.
Like, you have to continue to use it, or something that's really, really high in sugar. It's like rocket fuel. I mean, and as soon as you run out of it, you're done.
Caffeine sometimes make you cramp too, though, can't it?
I don't.
Not you,
I don't
but
know.
Just in general.
Honestly, cramping is really still poorly understood.
Yeah.
It's really not well understood why people cramp.
Yeah,
it's
I've
not.
heard that too.
There's no. There are plenty of studies that have shown that it's not an electrolyte thing. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of studies shown that it's not a hydration issue.
Right.
It's really not well understood.
Hydrate really well and they still cramp. Okay. All right.
I mean, I peed 7 times on the bike, so I clearly wasn't dehydrated.
Yeah. So what was your first meal after?
At the race they had bratwurst.
Okay.
So I had a bratwurst, which was sort of surprising. I didn't think they would have bratwurst, but I had a bratwurst. And then I got home and I had a...
home is in cabin, right?
The cabin, yeah. We got to the cabin and my friend had run out to this bar and got a burger called a Fat Boy. It was a double cheeseburger with shaved ham on it. That was delicious.
Yeah, so did your friend do it with you? You went out there?
No, he ended up not doing it. He had gotten into a car accident and kind of jacked up his back. And honestly, I could just tell his heart really wasn't into this race. It's my 50th birthday this year, so it's sort of like my 50th birthday thing. And he wasn't into it. And so once he got in the accident, that put enough of a dent in his training that he just kind of bailed on the race. Okay. So, but they came out for support.
Right.
And hung
Are
out
they
with us
from
for
there?
No, they live in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
October.
October
4th.
October 4th. Dan's 50th. Big party in the gym?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Big party on the track. We're gonna do a track workout.
Oh. I'm sick that day, I think. Nice. Okay, so you got a lot of stories. Fun?
Looking back on it, of course, now it's easy to, a week and a half later, to look back and go, yeah, it was fine. I had fun. I mean, I would say from the second half of the bike course all the way through the rest of the run, no, not a lot of fun. Like, there were moments, like, you see a lot of crazy stuff out there. There was a guy that was running and he had call it a Speedo on, not a very tight-fitting Speedo. It was sort of loose, and it had the face of a cat on it. And he had like a half shirt on, and he was wearing like this like Chinese like Hong Kong Phooey kind of hat, And so seeing him, I was like, that's pretty funny. And I remember I said there was a guy running next to me. I was like, I don't know what's the best part of his whole getup, Gary, because he had these just wicked tan lines from like here down. So he had like tan legs, and then it was white from there to up to his Speedo, and then he's got this crazy Speedo on, crazy hat. And I was like, I don't know what the best part of that was. Like, was it the tan lines? Was it the Speedo? Was it the hat? Like, it's all crazy, and it's all great. So there are moments, where you have some little funny moments out there like that. The people in town of Coeur d'Alene were fantastic. Like, there were homeowners out there that were standing on the corner with garden hoses and they would spray you down like, awesome. And they were awesome. I mean, they were just fantastic. It was, yeah, I mean, I say this sort of tongue in cheek, but it's probably true. It was sort of life saving, like having those people out there. Like, you had something to look forward to. You come around the corner, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Those people up there at that next corner, like I'm gonna get sprayed with water. It's gonna be so awesome.
Have you been there before?
Never. I've only ever driven through Coeur d'Alene, so I never stopped.
Okay. I have a lot of family up there. That was one of our possible retirement places we talked about. It's beautiful over there.
It is gorgeous. Yeah. I would go back.
Next year for the Ironman?
Well, they're not doing the full Ironman next year. They're doing a half.
Oh.
So for the next 2 years, they'll do a half Ironman, and then in 2024, they'll do a full again.
Okay. So one.
I would do a half there for sure.
1 point
I would
something
totally
miles
do a half. 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, 13.1 mile run.
Okay.
I would totally do a half there. That's a great course for a half. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. Anything else?
I don't know. I think, I know a lot of people are like, I could never do anything like that or whatever. And I don't think you have to like do an Ironman, but being out there, and it's not me finishing the Ironman that reveals this. It's seeing some of the other people out there. I finished at like, what time did I finish? 6:30. I finished about 7 p.m. Okay. There were people that were still going until midnight. Like the course is still open until midnight. You have 17 hours to finish the course. That's when they start. Yeah. And so, when you see some of those people out there, I mean, there are people of all shapes and sizes. You think everyone's like looks the same. And certainly there is sort of like CrossFit. There's like a shape to CrossFit, but there are people of all shapes and sizes, experience levels out there getting it done, and there are people doing it for all different kinds of reasons. Cancer survivors, people that are doing it to honor loved ones that have passed on and stuff like that. And I think it's just a good reminder that you're a lot more capable than you give yourself credit for or than you think you are. And I think it's important. People are like, why do you do that? And you asked, is it fun? And I honestly have to think about is it fun? Like in the moment, there were moments where it was absolutely miserable. Like just, you start questioning.
Feels pretty damn good afterward to know
you did
it.
Yeah, it does. But you start questioning, why am I doing this? Why would I ever do this again? And I said I've always wanted to do Kona. I'm out there on the bike course going, there's no freaking way I want to do Kona. Kona's hot. It's windy. It's hilly. I don't want to do anything like this ever again. And it takes about 2 days before you start going,
maybe.
Nah, what if I'd have done this, or had I done that, or maybe this course or whatever. So I think it's just a good reminder that we are a lot more capable than we think we are. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of value in doing things that are ridiculously hard every once in a while and coming out on the other side going, hey, I survived that. I didn't, I say this sort of tongue in cheek, but I didn't die.
Right.
I was really, really uncomfortable, and I learned something about myself, and I learned something about other people. So.
Well, we say that kind of stuff in CrossFit all the time.
Absolutely.
You didn't die.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's awesome. Very different from other things like row for Reveille when you're doing 24 hours.
But the same sort of thing. You go through the same. Yeah. You go through the same thought process. At 2:00 in the morning, you're like, I don't want to do this again. Like, but you take motivation, and inspiration from those around you, right? And you think about what's the cause? Like, why am I doing this? And Ironman wasn't necessarily a cause, but again, I thought about the people in this community a lot. And when I got home and got to my phone and saw all the messages on there, and when I got got back here, and the number of people that said, not just that they were cheering me on, but actually followed along, had downloaded the app, had watched
that was pretty neat that they did that, the app.
There were so many other things you could have been doing on that Sunday other than watching me slog around Idaho for 12 and a half hours. So, that again, it's just a reminder, hey, if I commit to something, I have to do it because it's bigger than me. There are other people that are taking inspiration from that, and I need to honor that and treat it right. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm pretty sure most of the people that I talked to were pretty inspired by it. Especially, to do it in general, for me, I am one of those people that says, I do not have any desire.
Which is okay.
However, I think highly of people who can do it, and especially in that kind of heat. That's insane. Most of us back here were hiding indoors.
It had the highest dropout rate of any race ever. Yeah. Typical DNF or did not finish rate is 5%, and this one was over 26%, almost 27%.
Wow.
So more than 1 out of every 4 people that I started with didn't finish.
Well, that's insane. Yeah. So that's a lot higher. Yeah. Like I said, most of us were hiding or inviting people over that didn't have air conditioning. And
I was trying to hide as much as I could. Every time I saw shade, I was trying to hide.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
Now I'll say this: there are some people that have been inspired enough that they want to try to do an Ironman, perhaps next year.
Oh wow!
So we might have
maybe a KCF
KCF
team?
CrossFit team, group, whatever. So we're starting with a marathon in April. We're looking at doing a marathon in Yakima. So if you've ever done one or you think you might want to do one, look for information on a marathon team for April.
In Yakima?
It's outside of Yakima. And then potentially a triathlon team. So
nice.
Cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, I'll be on the wine duty where I help during the Yakima, right? It's wine area. So, all right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later.